Welcome to Carlton's Math Corner. Today we're going to continue our study on algebraic equations and functions. To begin, we're going to start off, of course, with something to put a smile on your face, because learning is fun. And then at this time, this would be a great time for you to take out your vocabulary packet, if you haven't done so already, as well as your math notebook or math journal. Today, we are going to be identifying the domain and range. And we've talked about the domain and range, or it was briefly mentioned on our last video. And I wanted to give you a visual, though, of where the domain and range come from. First of all, the domain is a set of all inputs, and we referred to it as the variable x. And the reason why it's called the x is because it comes from the x-axis on a graph. All of these numbers that are on this number line, on this horizontal number line, and horizontal just means straight across, right to left. If I'm looking at this, these are just numbers that I could plug in for x, and they go on infinitely in both directions. So I could plug in positive numbers for x, or I could plug in negative numbers. Same is true for range. Range, since we said that range, and I'm going to actually put y-axis, because range, we mentioned that range has to do with the set of all outputs, all the answers you get. And we refer to it as it's the variable y. And so range is all the answers we get, and it comes from the y-axis. That's why it has the y as its variable. And so this is the y-axis. This is called a vertical axis. It goes straight up and down. And notice it has positive numbers on top because we can get answers in a function that are positive, and then we can get answers in a function that are negative. And so some of our numbers are below. So I want you to read this. This line is actually of a function. It is, if I look at this, I want to show you. Let's say I plugged in a number 1. Okay, so this is the x-axis. These are the numbers we plugged in. So let's say I plugged in a number 1. Well, can you figure out what answer I got out in this function? This line represents an equation, and I plugged in a number 1, what answer do you think I got out? What would be my y? Exactly. If I draw a line straight up, oh, and I don't want that big a line. Let's do a smaller one. If I draw a line straight up from 1, look where it crosses that blue line. It crosses at the number 2. And so basically what that is telling me is that when I plugged in the number 1 in my equation, whatever the equation is, I got an answer of 2. Same thing if I plugged in, this is 0. Right in the middle is always called 0. It's where the positive and the negative meet. It's a neutral number. It's right in the middle. And so when I plugged in 0 in this line, look what happened. I got an answer of -1. So our domain is all the numbers that we plug in, and really it's an infinite number of numbers. It can be, because a line, which what a function creates, goes on infinitely in both directions. Okay, now the range, same is true with, it's all the answers. It's the vertical line here, it's the y-axis. It's all the answers that we can get. And on this line, we just saw that we got an answer of 2, and we got an answer of -1. That means that we plugged in 0 and we plugged in 1 to whatever equation we were working with, and we got those answers of 2 and -1. Okay, so domain is a set of inputs, or the x's, comes from the x-axis, and the range is all the set of outputs, or the y-axis. And so we today are going to look at some graph or tables, function tables, and I want you to tell me what is the domain, meaning what is all of the inputs, or what are all the inputs, what was plugged in to this equation. And the way that we're going to write this answer is let me change. We're going to write it with a set, and this is what a set looks like. It kind of looks like parentheses. It actually looks more like brackets, but it's got this little squiggle, okay? This is called a set. It basically gives us a group of numbers, and it helps us focus on those numbers. So in this function table, what numbers did we plug in for the domain? So we're going to put D for domain, and then we're going to create a set. And all the numbers that we plugged in are the inputs. Those are numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's my set. That's for all the numbers that I plugged in. So that means if I wanted to graph these are all the numbers on the x-axis, the line that's going straight right to left. These are all the numbers that I would begin with. And then the range is basically looking at all the answers. What answers did we get in this function table? And let me go, oops, I want to put range, and we're going to create a set. Can you tell me what are all the answers that we got? What's the output? Correct. We got 7, 14, 21, 28. So we are just listing all the numbers we plugged in, so the x's, and all the numbers we got out, and those are the y's, okay? And so domain, here's how I think of it, because some people get them confused, but I want you to think of the word domain, okay? Domain starts with a D, range starts with an R. If I think of them alphabetically, if I looked them up in a dictionary, D would come first before R, and so I know that I am looking, domain is the first numbers I see, because those are the numbers I'm plugging in, and then range are the last numbers I see. Those are the numbers that I am plugging out, or that I'm getting out as answers. Okay, so let's try these. Can you create the sets, the domain and the range for each one of these? I'll give you a moment and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so for the first set, here's what I got. Okay, so the domain, we plugged in all of these numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, they are x's. And then the range, we plugged in, or we got answers out as 4, 7, 10, and 13. And that's how I am listing my set. For number 3, here are the answers I got. Okay, so the first one, domain, we put 0, 1, 4, 9, 16, because that's all the x's. Remember, f of x also stands for y. That's another way to write y. So these are all the answers. And what do you notice that I did incorrectly? What's one number that I forgot? And it could be in any of these sets. There's a number that I forgot that really is important, and I forgot it on purpose because unfortunately people seem to think that this number is truly not a number, but it is. It is a number, it counts. For those of you that said 0, you are correct. So 0 is a number, it does count, And so what I want to do is add that to my list. So my range, because this is in my category, these are all my y's, or we can call it f of x. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my range. Make sure you include zeros. We included them before, but we need to make sure that we include it throughout the whole thing if there is a zero that's listed. Well, here's your ticket problem. I would like for you to list the domain and range. Make sure that you write your answers as a set. Okay, thank you so much for joining me at Carlton's Math Corner, and I look forward to meeting you again, or meeting with you again on our next target.